Good morning. We're going to get started this morning with the invocation. That will be led by Blake Baston, pastor at Crossings Community Church, and then that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. That will be led by Lucy Brocksmith of Girl Scouts Troop 418. Please stand.
And Bobby Swartz so much last week. He was a beloved member of our church family, and we just want to say thank you. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be here this morning. You teach us that to love is to put the needs of others above our own. And the greatest way we can do that is to be devoted to serving. And so we thank you for these great individuals who had devoted themselves to serving this city and to serving this community. We ask today that you would give them wisdom and discernment and compassion as they make the decisions that will serve us all so well. We thank you, Lord. In your name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Baston, and thank you, Lucy. All right, I call this meeting of the City Council to order. We start with item 3, Office of the Mayor. Item 3A is a resolution suspending the sister city relationship with Ulyanovsk, Russia. The resolution, basically speaks for itself. I think it details all the important moments that led up to this, but I'll just reiterate, this proposal was not made lightly. It's in response to specific requests that all American cities have received from the Ukrainian government. And I did, of course, take the step of reaching out to our sister city, which I did not hear from. We have not had any municipal level contact with this city in at least 15 years, which is unique compared to our other sister cities. And I also referred the question to our local sister cities organization, which has recommended this suspension. I think the suspension is kind of a nice compromise as we try, as opposed to a cancellation, as we try to see where everything goes and gives us options moving forward. So with that, I would yield for any questions or comments or motions. All right. I have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. The remainder of the Office of the Mayor agenda are items B through F. These are appointments to the Board of Adjustment, HP Commission, CVB, Oklahoma City County Board of Health, and the Zoological Trust. We can take it with one motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. That concludes Office of the Mayor, and now we move to item 4, items from Council, where we have a couple of travel resolutions. We have item 4A. This is a resolution approving travel expenses for Councilmember Nikki Nice to attend tours in Atlanta with Northeast OKC Renaissance in September. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously and with the required 6 affirmative votes. Item 4B is a resolution approving travel expenses for Councilmember Bradley Carter to attend the Growing Sustainable Communities Conference in October in Iowa. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously and with the 6 required affirmative votes. Item 5 are city manager reports. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, so on the agenda today, we had an item to have a presentation from Russell Evans, our economist that we work with. Russell is not able to be with us today, and so the report is in the packet, but we're going to schedule another day. My hope would be for the next meeting, but we'll make sure it fits into his schedule, and we'll get him back here as soon as we can, have him scheduled and let him make a report, and to have the interaction with you all just to explain where we are with the economy, where he sees things heading right now. So we'll get that rescheduled. A couple of other reports that we have on. We don't have formal presentations. We do have the interim financial report. It's just a preliminary report on the end of the fiscal year. Typically, we'll go through all our closing on our financials, and it's around November, December when we finalize our financials for the previous year. So we won't take any action on this until that time. But we do have a preliminary report right now is that in the general fund, revenues exceeded expenses by $17 million for the year, which is a very, very strong year. And it was a combination of strong revenue growth, even with budget amendments that we made, but also coming in under our expenses for the year. We did make the change in our policy for fund balance in the last fiscal year, that if we're over a certain level, and I think it was 22%, that add additional funding over that on the fund balance would be set aside in our capital improvements fund for future capital maintenance for our facilities. And so we'll take that action once we close our financials, but a very strong year for us financially. And then we have the sales and use tax report continuing. This is for August through August. We're at 7.7% growth. We had about 7% growth for the month. Sales and use tax combined is about $4.3 million ahead of target. So a really good start to the year on our revenue side. And that is all that I've got on the city manager reports.
All right, thank
Mayor,
you.
excuse me,
Go ahead.
may I ask the city manager or make a request? Craig, could we have a report? Now, it doesn't have to be at a city council meeting. It could possibly just be individually with members of council, but a focus on the use of technology and especially best practices by other municipalities, and in particular as it relates to, say, the police department, but also fire and any other department in terms of development in the use of technology over the past 2 to 3 years, get an update. For example, there was a news report that Tulsa recently included various types of cameras throughout the city of Tulsa to enhance or assist with the police department in terms of identifying particular vehicles, things like that. I still would like to hear in terms of the use of improved technology, especially like with drones, in terms of some aspects in the policing activities. For one thing, in terms of pursuits, but then also I think in some municipalities are using them in terms of traffic control. So just an overall report in terms
So we can structure something like that and look at where we are with our use of technology and some of the things that we're doing, because we've got a lot of new technology we've been rolling out recently, but look at what's happening in some of the other cities so that we can just get some updates on potential technologies that we could have in the future.
Right, and I mean, I'm not suggesting an hour or 2 hour presentation, just somewhat brief, but thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. Item 6 is Journal of Council Proceedings. We have items A and B we could take with one motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 7 is request for uncontested continuances. Listed on the agenda are items 11E, 11H, and 11S, all of which have been deferred as noted. Anything else, Mr. City Manager?
Yes, starting on page 11, item 11F, this is SPUD 1900. This will be deferred to the 13th of September. And then on page 12, item 11L, SPUD 1421 will be deferred to the 20th of December. So that's a longer deferral on that one.
Say that again, I didn't hear you. Which one is it?
It's SPUD 1421, item L, 11L.
Thank you.
Then on page 14, unsecured structures, item 11W1. All of these are stricken. Item B, 4300 South Prospect Avenue, the owner has secured. Item D, 1505 Northwest 4th Street is to re-notify the new owner. Continue on page 14, item 11, X1, abandoned buildings. All of these are stricken from the agenda. Item A, 4300 South Prospect Avenue, the owner is secured. Item B, 1505 Northwest 4th Street to re-notify the new owner. And then item K, 2640 Southwest 43rd Street, the owner has secured. And that's all the items I have.
All right. Item 8, revocable permits and events. We have item 8A, which is a joint revocable permit with the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust and the LifeShare Foundation to hold the Little Red Heart 5K around Lake Hefner on September 24th. And we have Heather Dean, who has signed up to speak.
Good morning. My colleague, Gabrielle Butler, is going to come up as well. So this is our 5th annual Little Red Heart 5K, our 2nd year to be out at Lake Hefner. And our event is all about bringing our community of people who are honoring their loved ones who were organ donors, and also celebrating the gift of life through transplant, which is also a fundraiser for the LifeShare Foundation.
Hi, I'm Gabrielle Butler. I'm the Director of Development for the LifeShare Foundation. The foundation supports LifeShare of Oklahoma, which is the state's federally designated provider of organ, tissue, and eye recovery for the state. The LifeShare Foundation is proud to support the efforts of LifeShare by bringing awareness to the community, supporting initiatives that help people recognize the importance of registration to be a donor. We provide support for donor families, transplant recipients, and those still waiting for that second gift of life, and also support research and advancements in donation and transplant.
Yeah, so it's just a really fun family event.
All right. This goes into wards 1, 2, and 8. So I don't know if anybody wants to jump in and speak or make motions.
I'd say the Burt Cooper Trail is the great.
Okay. Got a motion and a second? Maybe. There it is. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Thank you. Have a great event.
We appreciate you.
8B is a revocable permit with the Riversport Foundation for the Riversport Duathlon on September 10th, using the area around Riversport. I don't have anyone signed up to speak. I will note they had a fabulous event this past weekend that drew international competitors that we stole from Russia, by the way. It's been a bad week in Oklahoma City for Russia, but that's okay. Seeing no one signed up to speak, I don't know if wards 6 or 7 would like to chime in or make a motion.
I would like to echo what you just said, Mayor. Everybody's probably resting from the weekend. It's been a long one. But I also want to say it was an amazing event, got to hang out there. So I know this one will be just as fun and exciting for September the 10th for the Regatta Park in the Boathouse District. So with that, without anything, I'll move for approval.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. 8C is a revocable permit with the Susan G. Komen Breast Cancer Foundation for the OKC More Than Pink Walk on October 22nd in Bicentennial Park. We do have Alyssa Pope, who's signed up to speak.
Good morning. So this year, we are very excited with Susan G. Komen to be having our in-person event this year. With COVID, we had to do some major restrictions as far as being out in the community and really showing the investments that we've made in Oklahoma County. So this year, we are full-fledged back out with all of our participants, our donors, our sponsors at Bicentennial Park. So
we are just asking that the city continue to support us in this event. Susan G. Komen, as you know, this year we're celebrating 40 years and actually celebrating 29 years in Oklahoma City area. So we are also very excited to come together again with everyone and raise awareness and let people see what the improvements and advancements Susan G. Komen has done over the years in our area. And just to let you know, for Oklahoma City, just about between 500 and 700 people reach out to Komen for assistance. So it's very important to all of us.
All right, now this is in Ward 6, Councilwoman Hammond.
Yeah, I will proudly move for approval.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Okay,
Have a great
thank
event.
you.
8D, revocable right-of-way use permit with AIDS Walk of Oklahoma City, Inc. to hold the AIDS Walk of OKC on October 2nd on parts of Sheridan. And we do have Marcus Whitworth, I believe.
Morning.
Good morning.
So this year we're celebrating our 24th annual AIDS Walk, which will take place on October 2nd at the Myriad Gardens. It will consist of a festival with live entertainment, service providers, and on-site testing, and then a walk through downtown Oklahoma City to remember those we've lost, celebrate our survivors still living with us in the community, and bring awareness to the importance of prevention. Our theme this year is U equals U in 2022, which means that undetectable equals untransmittable. For those that aren't aware, through proper treatment, HIV-positive individuals can greatly reduce their risk of transmitting the virus to others. And we'll be raising funds this year in support of agencies like Guiding Right, Other Options, the Latino Community Development Agency, and Red Rock Behavioral Health Services.
All right, so this is in Wards 6 and 7. Any comments, motions?
I'll just ask what time. What time will it?
The festival begins at noon and will run from noon to 2, and then our walk will start promptly at 2 o'clock.
Thank you.
Yeah, excited to have this hosted in downtown, and I will move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Have a great event. Okay, 8E is a revocable right-of-way use permit with the Down Syndrome Association of Central Oklahoma to hold the Down Syndrome Festival and 5K on September 24th on Sheridan. And Sarah Sowell is here to speak.
Thank you. My name is Sarah Sewell. I'm the Executive Director for the Down Syndrome Association of Central Oklahoma, and we would like to host our 28th Annual Awareness Walk and 5K on September 24th, and we will start the 5K and fun run at 8 a.m., and we hope to start lining our walkers up at 9:45 and walk around John Rex Charter School, where we can celebrate that 21st extra chromosome and individuals with Down syndrome. We also will have our festival on the Myriad Gardens, where we're going to have inflatables and carnival games, and our self-advocates will be giving out cotton candy. We have about 30 resource groups that will be there to provide information to our families, as well as food trucks. So we're just really excited to be celebrating our individuals with Down syndrome as we continue to help them in ways of meaningful opportunities for employment and college and other things. So I hope that you will approve us, because this is our largest fundraiser, and it's something that's very meaningful to me because I do have a daughter with Down syndrome. So thank you.
Sarah's daughter is also has a portrait
over.
in my conference room.
She's 16 now, so her photo looks a little different.
Okay, this is in Ward 6, Councilwoman.
Well, it's proving to be a very busy couple weeks
Yeah.
in downtown coming up, so I'm excited to host you all, and I will move for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, 8F, revocable right-of-way use permit with the Professional Basketball Club LLC to hold the Thunder Run on September 25th on Oklahoma City Boulevard. And Sarah Bailey is here to speak.
Hi, I am the manager of special projects and event presentation for the Oklahoma City Thunder. We are looking to host our 4th Thunder Run on Sunday, September 25th. It includes a 1-mile family fun run that will start at 9 a.m. and then a 5K that will start at 9:30. We haven't had the run since March 7th of 2020, just before everything kind of shut down. So we're excited to kick it back into gear and provide, an opportunity to bring the community together in September.
All right, this is in wards 6 and 7.
Well, I know we're looking forward to it, and some of us may have to participate in the fun run instead of the 5K.
We'll welcome you to either one.
Well, we appreciate that, and if nothing, we'll move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll recess the council meeting and convene as the Oklahoma City Municipal Facilities Authority, where we have items A through E we could take with one motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. We'll adjourn OCMFA and convene as the Oklahoma City Public Property Authority. We have items A and B here, and we have a presentation on item A.
Yes, so David Todd is here. David's our director of the MAPS programs, and he's going to just introduce our speaker on this agreement, the beginning phases for this operating agreement.
Good morning, David Todd, MAPS Program Manager. Today we continue our selection and affirmation of the operators for the MAPS 4 projects. Today we're here for the Claire Looper Civil Rights Center, and the group that will be operating this is Freedom Center LLC. The executive director is Christina Beatty, and she is here to give you a quick presentation on the project.
Good morning. Thank you for having us. Again, my name is Christina Beatty. I serve as project director for Freedom Center of Oklahoma City, LLC. I want to first take a moment just to acknowledge my board members who are here with us today. They really have been the backbone of this whole project since promoting it and proposing it 4 years ago. So it's amazing to see how far things have come in that time. Let's see, I'm right-clicking. Am I doing that right? Okay. So again, just to give kind of a brief update on where we are with things, we have spent the last year in preparation for being considered as operator for the Claire Looper Civil Rights Center. We spent the last year going through a really intensive intentional planning process with Lord Cultural Resources. It is a global firm that works strictly with cultural institutions. We have had the fortune to work directly with Joy Bailey Bryant, who is the president of the U.S. company. And one of the things that is really amazing about this process, they bring not only the national and global perspective, but they also have experience right here in Oklahoma City, having worked with both First Americans Museum as well as Oklahoma Contemporary. And so we were very intentional during this process to really engage community as we're working to establish this vision. Again, we took our time. We did this over the course of a year. They came in from New York City. We facilitated workshops and input sessions, engaged everyone from our peers in the arts, history, culture, and tourism sectors to actual sessions with high school students, as well as their educators, as well as folks, ranging from our colleagues here at the city and in-state tourism. So we've really had the opportunity through in-person sessions, interviews, focus groups, et cetera, to engage over 100 individual participants in this planning process. And all of that led us to our formal business plan, which we just wrapped up in May of this year. And we used that information to respond to the city's request for operating information. We also have just recently been awarded additional support from Oklahoma City Community Foundation to move forward even further into implementation planning. That business plan gives us a really clear snapshot of where we want to be at the time of opening, and now we'll continue that work to get a really clear roadmap of how we get there over the next 4 to 5 years. So the big question that everyone always asks is, what are we going to do in the Claire Looper Civil Rights Center? And really the vision that has come out of this process is that we will feature exhibitions, collections, and programming. Exhibitions will be a combination of permanent, semi-permanent, and temporary. Dedicated space to exhibitions will be relatively limited because, as you'll see in just a moment, really programming is going to be the heartbeat of the center. We do anticipate offering up collections. So we really have had a unique opportunity with all of the historic items that were inside of the Freedom Center building to work with the University of Oklahoma and turn that into a proper archive. And for us, that is about being the best possible stewards of those materials, but it also will influence everything that goes into the Claire Looper Civil Rights Center. So that will be the basis for developing exhibitions. It will inform our educational and public programming. And really it just is about helping us tell a very authentic and historically accurate story. But ultimately, again, programming will be the heartbeat of the center. We are looking at this in 3 core themes: youth development and mentorship, lifelong learning and engagement, and cultivating community and belonging. We will be developing programming to complement exhibitions such as guided tours, school group visits, curriculum tools, and teacher training. We will also be facilitating after-school and summer programming for youth to build on the legacy of activities that actually happen in the Freedom Center building under Ms. Looper's leadership and through the NAACP Youth Council. And then we will also begin to develop adult-focused public programs such as community forums, performances, book clubs, workshops, annual national speaker series. All of these are ideas that have, again, come out of these conversations with community members. We are already having conversations with various partners and looking at how we can facilitate this as a space, again, to really cultivate, community and belonging, bring people together. It can remain a relevant space. You can have important conversations about civil rights today, and we want to continue to be a really important resource to the community around us. So I will end there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Well, I don't necessarily have any questions, but I do want to commend you all for the work and the effort that you all have made and will continue to make as we strive towards the building and also the completion of the Civil Rights Center. And the board, you couldn't have picked a better person to lead this charge than Ms. Beatty with the vision that she has, and also being a part of some of those envisioning sessions. We know that everyone was at the table, that we could get to the table to be a part of this. So definitely looking forward to what is to come. And for all of you all who have not yet seen, the Freedom Center is under construction officially, so we're very excited about all of the things that are coming. So this is part 1 of many, many beautiful things to come. So congratulations, and looking forward to working with you all in the future.
Thank you.
May I ask, and I'll just double down on what the councilwoman said, what is our working relationship at present with the Clara Looper scholarship recipients at OCU as it relates to, I had never thought to
Right.
think
So
about that
Dr.
right now.
Harrell, I believe he's Dean of Students, but he manages that program. He participated in our visioning sessions, and also he's someone that we had Lord speak with specifically, our consultants with Lord Cultural Resources. So we've been in touch with them over the process. I think relationships will continue to evolve as we begin to look at more specificity in terms of programmatic offerings, but they definitely have been at the table and in conversations as well.
Yeah, I think that's good, because I think sometimes, just from what I've heard, there are moments where some of those scholars feel, excluded from even some of the OCU moments. And I just see this as a wonderful opportunity to really honor not just Clara's legacy, but how she poured into these kids.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we actually have one of the Claire Looper Scholars alumni on our MAPS 4 subcommittee, Bailey Perkins, right, is a graduate through that program from OCU. So
good. Nope, that's right.
She's been a
That's
great
good.
connection to the alumni of that opportunity as well.
And she was exactly who I was thinking of when I thought of
Yes.
someone who's like really called out our attention to make sure we honor these students.
Yeah, she's on the subcommittee and she's at every meeting.
Thank you.
Well, it continues to be a very exciting project, and thank you to the board for joining us here this morning as well.
Thank you.
We can pass the items on the PPA agenda as with one motion. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, now we'll adjourn OCPPA and reconvene as the City Council, where we find ourselves on the consent docket, item 9. We have presentations for items AI and BG, and I think that's it.
That's it.
Is there any other item that a council member wishes to pull out for separate discussion or questions or comments or a vote?
You did say AI, correct?
I did.
Thank you.
I have a couple, if you don't mind. One is AL, and also item W.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Item AJ, just to hear a public update on that item, please, street enhancement. And then I had mentioned this to council staff, but I just think it's probably important for a public note of item AX. It's pretty important.
AX, you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, well, if that's it, we'll take them in order, which would start us at item W. Councilwoman Nice.
Yes, with this item, I know we have deferred it a couple of times, so I just wanted to update everyone else on what we are doing. One of the reasons I wanted to pause this is because we were looking at finding ways to improve the field and the dugout, and we were able to have a conversation with Fields and Future, as well as some of our OKCPS athletic director and assistant athletic director, because my goal is to make sure that we don't have to repeat the paint, if you will, where we have to tear down. He does this beautiful work, and then we have to tear down and build some new dugouts. But we are able to use these same dugouts, so now we can officially award this mural for Mr. Tony Thunder, and I'm so excited about what this will bring to that area of our community, especially the way it sits right next to the Willa D. Johnson Recreation Center and brings reverence to the area of history for Douglas, as well as this part of Douglas Park in Northeast Oklahoma City. So I just wanted to make sure I let you all know, because a few weeks ago we did defer it, so I wanted to keep you all updated on why and what the progress has been. So now we're to this point, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Item AI, that's where we have a scheduled presentation.
Yes, Eric Winger, our Public Works Director, will give us an update on the preliminary report on the Union Station renovation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Eric Winger, Public Works Director. We do have a presentation for you today to give you an update and answer questions on the status of the Union Station. I think most are familiar. This is a building that's located on the lower end of the Scissortail Park. And we've actually had some work underway with some of the preliminary design efforts. And so that's what we're going to present this morning to you is some of those preliminary plans. So from a historical perspective, it originally opened in 1931 to serve the Rock Island and the Frisco railroads. It remained in operation until the mid-60s when rail service and travel declined in Oklahoma City. And so at that point, the building no longer served passengers. It's listed on the historical register, and it's currently used as storage and office space. So as we look at the scope and with the completion of the Scissortail Park, there's a lot of more beneficial uses of the facility. And so as a part of this preliminary plan, we're looking for a number of things that you'll find here on this list: repair of the historic building, replacement of outdated electrical and other infrastructure, including HVAC, ADA upgrades, expansion of the fire protection, IT, and security infrastructure. But we're also looking to restore some of the historical efforts and remove some of the past alterations, restore the 2 historic waiting rooms. And then the primary purpose, again, is going to be more to serve the Scissortail Park administration, operations, and storage needs for the park. This is a floor plan. The largest portion that you see on the bottom right is that first floor. And that upper left, it does have a partial second story or a second floor that's located there. Everything that's located in gray is no renovation. So those are going to be those primary historic areas that are going to be touched, but there's not major work that's occurring in those areas. The areas that you find in color are those renovations that are planned. So at the top of the drawing, there's 2 new halls, some public space halls. There's some flexible space that's included. To the left, you're going to find new offices and support areas, including park security and other options for offices. You'll find some additional offices in the center. In the upper floor, it's mostly mechanical renovations. But again, it's going to be a public use space as well. So it's going to have the opportunity to serve events and things in the future after the renovation is complete. This is one of the historic photos that we were able to find in the archives at the top. This is the Union Station as you see it today. So it does very much have a very unique character to the exterior of the building. And in looking at the interior materials, and these are some of the before and after. You'll see some of the before areas of where there were former waiting rooms. Some of those can be converted to these new public halls that can be used for event space. You'll see the color palette is mostly natural tones and earth tone colors to represent that building as it stands today, just keeping it with the same type of style. This is going to be the colors that are going to be used in the Welcome Center, the gift shop, and part of the History Center, which are part of that facility. Again, you'll just see the use of wood and stone materials, again, reflective of the building's architecture. And then this last series of materials is the events lounge, and then, of course, the public restrooms. There was an LED lighting package that was previously completed on the project, so this is a photo of that LED being utilized in the evenings. Definitely sets that facility apart. And then moving on to the budget, the overall project budget for Union Station is $17.2 million. You'll find that in the information that we provided to the council, it's currently being funded from CIP funds, but this project, with the council's approval today, will actually move to be a MAPS 3 project. There were MAPS 3 funds set aside for the actual construction of the facility, but the fee of $17.2 includes testing, public art, and the construction. The actual amount available for construction is $12.1 million. And then looking at the schedule going forward, with the approval today, we'll move the project to the MAPS office under the direction of David Todd. They'll begin the formal design beginning this fall. I'm expected that final plans could be completed as early as spring of '23, potentially a construction award in the fall of '23 with a final completion of all the construction in the spring of '25. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know David Todd's also available if you were to have questions regarding the MAPS portion of the project as we move forward.
I know this morning some of the news organizations picked up this agenda item, including Channel 9 had a reporter out at Union Station at about 5:30 in the morning. And I think that there's some interest here and people want to know, and it's good we can see this timeline. But things like the event space and the gift shop and the History Center, who's going to operate that? Will that be through Parks or some other agency?
It'll be the Scissortail Foundation. Yep.
Thank you.
I think what I would also comment is what we're presenting to you today is a lot of work that was done to prepare the preliminary report. So this is not intended to be the final plans. There's obviously a lot more input that will occur, and the council will receive the final plans before it's advertised for construction. So there's another opportunity for some questions and maybe some more detailed questions about the final finishes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that brings us to AJ. Councilman Cooper, you wanted to speak to that?
Is it on? Good. I know you and I and Director Jeff Butler over in planning have already discussed this, but I thought it might be worth a public moment to kind of hear a little bit more about ongoing work here.
Yeah, I'm happy to update. So the item that you have on item AJ is actually an amendment, number 2, to the contract for engineering services that's part of the design for a Walker Avenue Street enhancement project that's from 23rd to 36th Street. The project's actually combined with the Paseo Street enhancement project that's also currently in design by the same engineer. So the work is parallel. This amendment's going to take care of some things that were identified during the design that are going to be added to the project, including an alley enhancement, some pavement concerns that need to be addressed, some additional survey, and also a new 4-way stop on Walker Avenue. But moving forward, Walker Avenue is one that's going to include a lot of walkability improvements. It's sidewalks, it's ramps. It also includes some water features, some water garden features that are at the entrance to Paseo. The schedule that we're working on is to complete the final plans this fall with the anticipation that we can go into bid in early 2023. And that would include not only the Walker project, but also the Paseo project as well.
I have shared just images, renderings from specifically this project online to kind of give people in Ward 2 a good sense of what such a street could look like. And so I'm really excited to see where we are, particularly at this proposed intersection at Northwest 28th and Walker. Will we know, will approving this item make that a reality, or is that still something that we'll have to figure out as we move toward the final plans?
So the renderings that we had actually shared as a part of the preliminary report that include the rain garden are a reality. They're actually included in the budget as a part of both projects. The part that we're not 100% certain and we won't know till bid day is whether we can provide a sidewalk on both sides of Walker from 23rd to 36th. We're very confirmed that we can do one side for sure. We think we can get pretty far with the second side, but we're not 100% certain we can get that entire second mile. But we're going to address it in the most needed areas for walkability.
Yeah. So that sounds about where we've been previously. But on the idea of 28th and Walker, that intersection, the idea that that's going to be an actual 4-way stop, does this vote make that a reality, or are we still trying to figure out the mechanics of how that would work?
So there's still some traffic commission items and things that need to finalize that decision process, but this amendment will make that possible so we can include it in the design for further consideration. But those are the goals of the project, is for the 4-way stop to also be included.
Just wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your update as well.
Okay, and I suspect this may include you. You might just stand right there. But AL, Councilwoman Nice?
Yeah, I think that's why he didn't move. I know we've been talking through the replacement bridge. So I know this is some of the contract as far as the appraisal services. So if you'll continue to walk us through where we are and what is next.
Sure. So it's been some time, but we did have a bridge that we had to take out of service that is on Midwest Boulevard over Crutch Oak Creek. We were looking at any opportunity to keep that bridge open, but some rapid deterioration and safety concerns have caused us to close that bridge. It was a bridge that was unfunded, and so bridge replacement projects are not easy to resolve that quickly, but we were able to secure city ARPA funds for the construction that are going to be necessary to replace the bridge. The estimated cost is $2.1 million. So with this contract for engineering services, we're going to be able to complete that design of the bridge for its replacement. The preliminary report for this project would be available as early as in just a few short months in the fall of 2022. We'll have a better timeline with that preliminary report then on what it will take to actually remove the existing bridge and replace it with the new one. But the overall design will take less than a year. So I think we'll have final plans in 2023 and be bidding it at some point next year. I just don't have the exact time frame to share today. But the preliminary report would be the next step that we look forward to with the council's approval.
Thank you, and I know we have been in contact with the city of Spencer because this is an area of our community that they rely on heavily, and unfortunately, we're not looking at this opening until probably 2024.
Most likely, yes. It'd probably take about a year to construct as well.
Okay, well, I appreciate the effort, and hopefully things will move the way they're supposed to, maybe sooner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is item AX, I believe. Councilman Cooper?
Yes, this is just an important part of the ongoing bus rapid transit project from Better Street, Safer City, and from the matching federal grant. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more about what's happening in this area. I know my COPPA trust, we're aware, but I just wanted to make sure the public was kind of hearing where we are right now, because I think there's a lot of exciting possibilities in this area for us as a city.
Hello, good morning, Mayor and Council. Jason Fairbrush, Assistant City Manager and Director of Public Transportation and Parking. And so, yeah, the item that's on the agenda today really just furthers the bus rapid transit project that we're building along Northwest Expressway in Classen. And what's interesting and really critical to the project as far as it relates to this item is that it has to do with COTPA being able to make improvements to the property out there at Northwest Expressway and Meridian that is owned by, or I should say, owned by the city and obviously under the control and purview of Aquit. So the departments, Aquit, COTPA, city work together to be able to draft this lease agreement, which basically gives us, COTPA, the ability to make improvements on this land. The collaboration that we experienced working together really allowed us to be able to justify some of the improvements that we were going to make, not only to the parking lot there, but the construction of the platform, but also eventually some maintenance of the roads that are out there at that location. The value of those improvements really offset, say, the cost if we were to just go do a lease with Aquit and have to pay like an annual amount. So it's a lease agreement, but basically we're able to make the improvements, use the property for the BRT project in return for, like I said, the improvements that we're making.
And these improvements ultimately, if I'm not mistaken, give way to the park and ride.
Yeah, exactly. That's the I don't know, the interesting thing about this one here is that it is the park and ride for the end of the line as far as Northwest Expressway and Meridian location. We have, as you know, one on the downtown end of the line planned as well. And so, yeah, without this agreement and this collaboration, being able to make those improvements on the Aquit property, we wouldn't be able to have a park and ride. So, yeah, it's really critical to the project.
Is it my understanding as well that when a park and ride exists, that can also give way to future economic development in the surrounding area?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't want to speak for Aquit, but so generally speaking, yes, a park and ride along a high-capacity transit corridor would certainly lend itself to future development. And again, not wanting to speak for Aquit, but I know there have been some discussions or maybe some concept plans of eventual development somewhere out there. If that does occur, then I think the city, Aquit, potential future developers are well positioned because we have that high-capacity transit already located at that location.
Yeah, thank you for walking us through that, because when I saw the images of Union Station earlier, that presentation reminded me for all intents and purposes, something like a park and ride where the BRT will be is in many ways an analog to the old railroad stations, right? When you get off at a railroad station, what was there waiting for you but the hotel, the bank, the barber shop, the grocery store, the pharmacy, et cetera. So I really see the potential in terms of development. Of course, I'm not the private sector, but I just wanted people to be thinking about who's going to be utilizing this service and why this lease agreement was important. So thank you.
Yep.
If you
You're
don't
welcome.
mind.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, I think next would be the presentation on BG.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Chris York, our budget director, is here to give us a presentation on this budget amendment.
Good morning, Chris York, Finance Department. More of an explanation than a presentation this morning. This is a routine item. It's our amendment number 1 to our fiscal year 2023 budget. It's a routine item that we bring before council every year about this time, our so-called purchase order rollover process. And what this is related to is there were a number of transactions, purchase orders, that occurred in fiscal year 22 that weren't able to complete before the end of the fiscal year stopped. And so that could be for a number of reasons: supply chain issues, services not being able to be scheduled in time. And so those funds were intended to be used out of fiscal year 22, weren't able to complete. When the bill comes in fiscal year 23, we have to pay the bill. What this amendment does today is it restores each of the departments back to the adopted budget that council approved for the fiscal year and puts that money back into their budget. And so the offsetting revenue for this is basically fund balance because it was captured last year in encumbrances. We're just moving those funds forward. So the total change today is an $11.3 million increase to the overall budget. Once again, revenue was fund balance. And then zooming in on the general fund, it's a $6.2 million increase. This item today is the introduction. We'll bring it back to you on September 13th for a public hearing and then adoption if council chooses. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Okay,
Thanks, Chris.
thank you. Okay, now we have forgive us, we earlier had forgotten, I guess, a presentation from Downtown OKC on items BH and BI.
Jane Jenkins is here with us, Executive Director of Downtown OKC, Inc., to present this item.
Good morning, members of the council. I am Jane Jenkins. I'm the president and CEO of the Downtown Oklahoma City Partnership, and we are the nonprofit 501c6 entity that has managed the Downtown Business Improvement District for the past 22 years. The downtown bid is unique in its geographic size. We have over 1.5 square miles, and it represents 6 downtown districts, including Automobile Alley, Bricktown, City Center, Deep Deuce, Midtown, and the newly renamed West Village. The downtown bid is funded by assessment paid by the downtown property owners, and it is governed by an advisory board in collaboration with the City Council. The bid service zone includes the services you see on your screen, such as clean and safe, street-level maintenance. We pressure walk sidewalks, human and animal waste removal and sanitation, sticker and graffiti removal, providing special event information, business check-ins, hospitality escorts, and now homeless outreach. We actually have 4 core services that we provide. Clean and Safe, which is led by the Green Team under a contract that we have with a company called Block by Block. They recently added a homeless outreach coordinator, so we are now more in touch with trying to address the impacts of that problem, of those folks experiencing homeless, of that problem on the businesses downtown. We also do placemaking, such as special events, public art, and activating spaces. Advocacy, including representation of constituents, which are property owners, business owners, and visitors, as well as others. Promotion, such as the marketing of downtown and its districts, including social media. I think at last count we had 19 or 20 social media accounts that we oversee. And Then advocacy, I think I got to that part. Please excuse me. Okay, our budget this year is $3.56 million. It was approved by the Bid Advisory Board and to provide essential services such as clean and safe activation, promotion, and advocacy of the downtown area. This includes a $10,000 carryover from 2022 that we did not use. Our major programs for 23 will include continuation of the Green Team and continuing to expand and refine those services as we're learning what is really needed in there. The addition of the West Village as a district and providing services to that group. For the first time, they're going to have some funding that will be district specific that they can spend only in that area. And then continuing to work and focus emphasis on the district manager program. We have 4 of our districts, Bricktown, Automobile Alley, Midtown, and West Village, that have designated district managers that help them communicate, understand their issues, and help us program those particular areas. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you. Any questions on that?
I do have some questions about the Green Team. I wasn't aware that they had expanded their sort of touch into homelessness outreach, and I'm curious what kind of training or like coordination you all are doing with for the Green Team, but with those other, I know you all have funded in the past, I think a partnership with Homeless Alliance and some of the other outreach teams that exist.
Yes, that's correct. I can't understand you very well, so I'm going to try to answer what I think you asked me.
Sure.
I think that the Green Team did provide training, I think at least 2 weeks of training to Tiffany, our new homeless outreach coordinator. She will have other ongoing training as that goes. One of the reasons for taking this is making this switch is our partnership with the Homeless Alliance, which is a great organization, did not give us any kind of downtown specific information. And we wanted to get statistics that were downtown specific and have someone that could focus their energies on building relationships with the downtown population experiencing homeless so that we could better identify and offer what services were needed there. So we wanted something that was in under our direct responsibility that was working full time.
Neat. Great.
Did that?
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would add, I'm told that this may very well be your last appearance at City Council as you are nearing retirement, and I think it's worth noting. I think there's many people in town who don't know downtown OKC except for under your leadership. So it's been a long journey, but you've obviously, you and your team have done a fantastic job, and it's a great legacy.
Thank you. At least this is my last bid roll presentation, and it just depends on who shows up at the public hearing in September, right? And it has been my pleasure to serve downtown Oklahoma City and the city of Oklahoma City, and I'm sort of looking forward to retirement, but I will still remain in city building of some sort. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, the only last thing I would note is that a previously discussed item regarding the management of the Claire Looper Civil Rights Center also appears on this consent docket, but does not require further explanation. And I think that's everything we had for a scheduled presentation or a pulled out item, so we could take the consent docket as a group now. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. That brings us to item 10, the concurrence docket. We have items A through I we could take with one motion. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Oh, well, it showed on my screen. Item 11, items requiring separate votes, is where we are now, and item 11A is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval at 2824 Southwest 59th Street, going from C3 to R4. Councilman Greenwell, no one has signed up to speak.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, this was approved unanimously by the Planning Commission, and I would make I recommend that we move this forward as well.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. 11B is an ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval at 8401 Southwest 74th, going from PUD 1361 to I-2. Councilwoman Young. No one has signed up to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. There were no protests at planning also, and it was recommended for approval, so I'll move for that.
A motion and a second. Cast your votes. Are we still? Got them all? Oh, it's not showing on my screen, but it's up there. Passes unanimously. Okay. Item 11C is an ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval at 7025 North Santa Fe, going from R1 to I-2. Councilwoman Nice.
Has anyone signed up to speak?
They have not.
All right, thank you. And the purpose of this is to permit industrial development, and previously this same area was zoned R1, so clearly it's compatible with the use of what they're trying to do for this area. So with that, I will move for approval.
All right. Let's see if we seem to be, every screen's different right now. So we'd like to bring up a motion on this. Here we go. Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item 11D is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval at 240 Northwest 122nd, going from O1R1, R2, and SPUD 396 to R2. And Councilwoman Nice, Robert Haggard, the applicant, is here for questions.
Okay, I will ask for Mr. Haggard. Come on up. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm right over here. There you are. Good morning. I know we did talk on the phone, and we talked through some of the development and what we're doing here. Now, the one question that I had, and I still have, is the park as far as the driveway is concerned for this major street. What ways are we going to be able to alleviate the congestion? Because I am concerned for those duplexes, for them to get out on 122nd.
Well, I believe we have 22-foot wide driveways, and I wouldn't know what else as a designer to alleviate if there is a problem. I don't know that there's a problem.
Okay.
Have you monitored it or something and you've seen a problem?
Well, I know if you go down 122nd on a good day, you'll be in a lot of traffic, as far as even with sometimes when the railroad tracks are backed up, it can take you and have people sitting past in that neighborhood. So that's really my only concern. Otherwise, I'm all for it. I'm just concerned about that part. And I'm not sure as we look through this, if there are any things that we can ask or add to ensure that everyone is able to get out, the ingress and egress of these areas.
Well, we do have the extra wide driveways, and I don't know what else could be done unless they put a stoplight in.
Yeah, I know we probably won't be able to do that.
I spend a lot of time over there, and during the day, after that morning rush and that evening return rush, during the day, it's not very populated.
Yeah, and that part I definitely understand, but it'll be, maybe the times folks leave for work and folks come home from work is when I'm really concerned. So From our city perspective, Mr. JJ, is there anything as far as the site plan or what can we ask?
JJ Chambliss, Planning Department. The only thing they could do is maybe share driveways between the duplexes. There's no way to enforce that with a conventional zoning application.
Okay. All right, Mr. Haggard. Are you working on shared driveways?
Pardon me?
Are you working on shared driveways? Did you tell me that, or just wide driveways? Okay. All right. Well, again, I'm definitely all for the density of this area because I know we need some housing, especially in these spaces. So I'm going to go ahead and move for approval, and if you'll just help me figure out how we can do better by that, I would appreciate it. Okay?
Okay, we certainly will.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, let's see, item E was deferred.
So
It was approved, yes.
So it passed?
Yes.
And then is there a 10-day waiting period before we can apply for building permits?
You know what, these specific questions, you guys step outside and staff will be happy to answer your questions, yeah. Okay, item E was deferred, item F was deferred, which brings us to item G. This is an ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval at 11401 Chester Street, going from AA to PUD 1902. Councilwoman Nice, it does not appear anyone has signed up to speak.
Okay, this request is to permit a 3-lot development in all access from private driveways from that single access point. So for this, with the TEs, I will move for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. All right, item H was deferred, which brings us to item I. This is an ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval at 1609 Northwest 47th, going from R1 to SPUD 1417. Councilman Cooper, no one has signed up to speak.
Yes, but is anyone here representing? Would you mind coming up for us, please? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Drew Cunningham. I'm an attorney representing the property owner, applicant of this SPUD.
Hi, Drew. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about the project and kind of its history? Because there's a bit of an evolution I learned reading this.
Sure. Evolution of the actual building or of the application?
Oh, you can do both if you like, but I'm really especially interested.
Okay,
both
sure.
might be great.
The application, initially, I think about a year or two ago, a different attorney was hired and submitted a zoning request, a rezoning application for this property. It was too broad, it really wasn't pursued, and it was abandoned. At the recommendation of somebody within the planning department, they said, you know, rezoning is too broad, narrow it down to an SPUD just to accomplish what you want. And so what we want is, this property was initially constructed outside of the city limits boundaries. And at that time, there was no issue with the zoning, and then it was annexed to be within the city limits, and therefore it was like a, what do you call it, permitted non-conforming building. Now the issue is the property owner is wanting to sell it, and anybody who's looking to buy it has issues with its status as permitted non-conforming building. And so this SPUD is very limited. The only thing it does is says this permitted use is allowed. It's used as a storage facility for like wedding and event rentals, like tables and chairs and things like that. So this SPUD permits the building to be continued to be used as that, for that purpose only. and a few other limited light office uses. However, if it is ever changed from the wedding and event rental storage use to any of the other 4 listed permitted uses, then some of the changes such as site-proof screening, landscaping, parking, open space, if the use is changed, then the SPUD would require some changes to the site itself to conform with the underlying base district of O1 light office.
Thank you, Drew. Now, just to make sure I'm hearing this right, it's storage, but it's not like it's not an event center.
No. It's not an event space at all. It's a storage facility. I have some pictures that might help you see what the site looks like. It's a building that has garage bays. Could I hand this to you, or you got the?
Yeah, but I like that one's in color. This one's black and white. That's great. Thank you.
That's a picture from the front. Yep, there it is. And it's not an event space. I think there has been some various uses as, honestly, I'd be guessing. I think some like very light commercial uses like service trucks, maintenance trucks. And none of that is going to be permitted under this O1 office space district.
Now, sorry, you were going to say something?
I would just point out it's kind of an awkward building. It's clearly not a residential building. It's surrounded by a lot of single-family homes and then also some apartment complexes. It's underdeveloped. It's been lightly used for a long time. It's kind of in kind of a gray zone where nobody really wants to touch it. Nobody knows what to do with it. And so changing the zoning to this SPUD would allow, hopefully, for it to change hands and be revitalized and the use permitted under the SPUD.
And is anyone thinking about those other 4 uses?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is anyone thinking about these other possible 4 uses?
It would be total speculation because the current owners, it's being leased to a wedding and event rental space business now. They want to purchase it. I represent the owner, the seller, and he just wants to sell it, and the buyer just wants to know that they're going to be able to continue to be using it for their wedding and event rental business.
Am I wrong? The SPUD would not, it's not allowing for eventually like commercial though there?
No. The only use is, it's restricted. So it's O1 limited office is the base district, but it's even further limited to only the 4 uses listed under number 1. So administrative and professional offices, business support services, indoor use, custom manufacturing, repair services, and then the wholesaling, storage, and distribution for the wedding and event rental business. So those are the only uses that would be permitted.
The repair services? I'm not familiar with that.
That would be like watch repair, small appliance repair, computer repair, things like that. It's not an industrial, it's an office, O1 office district, so it's not industrial or anything like that.
I appreciate you walking me through that. I just had one more question and then a comment. Now, when things changed in this application process from beginning to where we are today, the residents in that 300-foot area, we re-notified them, we spoke to them?
When we filed the new SPUD application separate from the zoning request, yes, the whole new ownership list was created and the new notice was sent out.
So basically, they saw these same use lists.
Yes, they would have been notified of the application as it was submitted with the SPUD after the rezoning application was abandoned.
Okay. Thanks for walking us through that, and thanks, council and people watching at home and in the gallery for your patience there. The reason why I had to walk us all through that is, while I live in the Paseo and I advocate all the time for that retail housing, office mixture, that mixed-use development. I have learned that not everybody in my ward likes the proximity of retail to their homes. I disagree, of course, but that's okay. You know, the ward has different areas, and I wanted to make sure that the residents who live in this area that's homes weren't going to be surprised that suddenly like retail popped up around them and they didn't know. So that it was very important that we had this moment. It might seem really boring and maybe some people were bored, but this was due diligence for the residents there. So I just wanted to make sure.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you, Drew. And with that, I would move for approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We are on item I. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Item 11J is an ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval at 2942 Southwest 13th Street, going from I-1 and SRODD to SPUD 1418 and SRODD. Councilwoman Hammond, it appears that Victor Ortega and Eliezer Rodarte. Sorry. I always remember, the mayor has to read your handwriting at the end of this, so. I've signed up to speak, well, I should say if needed, but.
Hi, good morning. Victor Ortega, and this is Eliezer Rodarte. He's actually the property owner, and we're here to continue with this case where he's wanting to build a steel building in a recently converted zone to commercial 3. And we're here to answer any questions based on the petition.
Yeah, thank you. My understanding is that we did have some protesters or a protester during Planning Commission, but some of the TEs are addressing some of their concerns about hours of operation and those sorts of things. So I'm satisfied with your willingness to work with the nearby neighbors, and I will move for approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item K is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval at 3216 Northwest 23rd, going from R1 and Linwood Urban Conservation District to SPUD 1420 and Linwood Urban Conservation District. Councilwoman Hammond, no one has signed up to speak.
Yes, this is just commercial development along an already commercial corridor, so I will move for approval.
Got a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, item L was deferred, which brings us to item M. This is an ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval at 8008 West Wilshire Boulevard, going from R1 and AE2 to SPUD 1422 and AE2. And no one has signed up to speak. Councilman Carter.
After speaking with the council and looking at no objections, I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Item N, ordinance on final hearing recommended for approval at 708 Northwest 50th, going from R1 to SPD 1427. Councilman Cooper, no one has signed up to speak.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about your vision?
Good morning, Mark Zitzel with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. I would be happy to share the vision for this very exciting carport. There is an existing office building that is being, had some renovation done. there's an existing parking lot. They came in for a building permit and were surprised to find that the tract of land was zoned single-family residential, which did not allow the carport to be built because the parking was existing non-conforming. So this SPUD is tailored to specifically allow the parking lot and the carport. Any future development that would occur would need to come back through for a rezoning process. So this is simply to allow for the carport to cover some existing parking stalls.
Okay, just to totally geek out with you, my placemaking friend, I'm looking at where, well, yeah, it's good. I remember knocking doors here on 50th Street, and I know exactly who lives next door and all that fun stuff there. My understanding is a street enhancement, I know you and I have talked about this, from Western on 50th up to 235. Using your noggin there with all your background in placemaking and street enhancements, is this proposed carport going to limit any of the possibility of, you know, as wide as possible sidewalks there? I mean, who knows how it all gets engineered? We're nowhere near final plans on 50th Street, but I'd hate to see something, you know, limit that really true complete streets possibility of the walkability with landscaping and lighting. Or so what do you see that here, and how much space remains there between the carport and?
Sure, that's a great question. Cindy, if you can go back to the site plan. Where the carport's proposed is where that very intricate black box is shown toward the back of the property. So we're about 50 feet from the property line. So any street enhancement will still be able to occur, and this really won't impact anything that's planned along there.
Okay, just doing my due diligence once more. Thought you would enjoy that question. Thank you for your time and work. And
thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to item O. This is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval at 1601 Northeast 7th, going from R2 and I2 to SPUD 1430. Councilwoman Nice, no one is signed to speak.
All right, I see we have Fallon in front of us. Good morning.
Good morning.
First, I do want to take time to give you my appreciation for reaching out to those residents and those neighbors. And they did send me a little feedback, so I hope you can help me with this. Okay. They were asking that brick will be added to the siding on the structures.
Yes, I think that's the plan, yeah.
Okay.
We haven't done any actual design work yet. We just kind of created some renders, so.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I know we had talked through that as well. And also, to keep as many of the existing trees as possible within this development. So I just wanted to re-emphasize those things because I wanted to make sure that those residents were comfortable before we move forward. So with that, I know you all will continue to stay in contact with them as they've asked, so I appreciate that. Looking forward to what's going to come from this, and with that, I'll move for approval.
All right, thank you.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. What's it? Which one?
Thank you.
Passes unanimously. Okay, item P is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval at 12001 Ecker Drive, going from AA to SPUD 1431. Councilwoman Nice, no one has signed up.
All right, this is to permit 2 single-family residences on this 5-acre tract, and to my knowledge, there is already one existing structure, so we're just adding another, so pretty much a lot split. So I will ask that we approve this request.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, item Q is an ordinance on final hearing. It was recommended for approval. It's a special permit to use unit 8300.33 regarding drinking establishments. It's at 1009 North Harvey. And Councilwoman Hammond Nolan has signed up to speak.
Yes, yeah, this is just, like you said, a special permit. There were no protesters, just some inquiries, so I will move for approval.
A motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. 11R is an ordinance on final hearing that was recommended for approval to close 329 feet of the public right-of-way and utility easement along the south boundary of Northwest Expressway west of Pennsylvania. And Councilman Cooper Nolan has signed up to speak.
Mr. Box, would you mind? Music to everyone's ears. Yeah, just kind of walk us through what this portion of this Oak development project is doing for us.
Sure. David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. So this is the last bit of closing that needs to occur. You see the crosshatch that exists within the Oak development with CE 1059, CE 988. This application was actually filed about the same time. The issue that we face, and the reason it's just now coming before you, is the underlying fee owner had to be located from at the time in which Northwest Highway didn't exist. We had to locate the heirs of the property owner that had that tract and eventually work through the ability to acquire those interests. So we were able to do that, so we're now coming through to close that piece. If you've driven by there at any time recently, you will have undoubtedly noticed the significant amount of work that's happening on site. Much of the utility relocation has already occurred or is ongoing, and this is simply the last little bit that needs to occur. So this is what we hope to be the last time you'll see any closing application before the council. We do already have specific plan approvals on various portions of this development, and our hope is in short order you'll start to see some buildings come out of the ground there in what is a very exciting development.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for walking us through the evolution of this project. My understanding is the BRT station is just to the west of this development, so we're not...
Yeah, so this will not impact that. My client and the folks that are involved in that have been in communication for quite some time to ensure that both our development and the BRT can operate successfully. We think that perhaps there's some good synergy that could exist with the BRT with the amount of retail that will happen here. And there's a big chunk of multifamily, as you're aware, that'll exist within this site. So yeah, it will be further to the west, and we don't anticipate any problems.
Well, unless our assistant city manager / director of Embark has anything he would want to add, I think I'd like to move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to item S, which was deferred, which brings us to item T. This is the public hearing regarding an ordinance that was proposed at the previous meeting. Potential final vote would not occur until our next meeting. This relates to nuisances, amending sections 35, 175, et cetera. Has anyone signed up to speak under this public hearing, Amy?
No, they haven't.
All right. If there's no other comments, we'll close the public hearing and move on to item U. This is an ordinance to be introduced and potentially adopted with an emergency, amending ordinance number 26,950 as adopted by the City Council on January 18th of this year, extending the corporate limits of the City of Oklahoma City. This was deferred from August 2nd and the 16th, and I believe there is a little bit of an explanation that comes with this, correct?
Yes, this is just an amendment on the amendment to an annexation that has already been approved. And so I don't know, Matt, you want to just give a quick update on this and what this one is? So the item was actually approved previously, but there were some changes that needed to be made to the annexation.
Yeah, certainly. Good morning. Matt Collins, Municipal Counselor's Office. Yes, this item is an amendment to a previous annexation that was approved in January of this year. It essentially does three things. It corrects the legal description, which it narrows it in effect. It should have been the same as what was in the petition for annexation. It also clarifies that the property remains subject to the Deer Creek Fire Protection District. And then finally, it adds jurisdictional facts, which are largely consistent with the other items. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Okay, we do have 2 residents who signed up to speak on this item, so maybe we'll go there. We've got Kevin Ewing. And Mr. Ewing, if you wouldn't mind stating your address and keep your remarks to 3 minutes or less.
My name's Kevin Ewing, and I live at 2721 Northwest 206th Street, which is directly across the street from this annex property. And I have a handout here that I'd like for, I'm not as high-tech as everybody, to get up here, so if I could. Sure. Over here, never mind. And I'll let you all have a chance to get a hold of that so I can refer to that from the get-go. Okay, thank you. I just got to have a couple questions on, I know the annexation process has taken place, which our residents, you know, it's really zero effect on us. The thing that I have in question is the zoning of it. This property had been with the county. It had been tried to, for density changes for the last 10 or 15 years by several different companies. The county has denied it. At the end, it ended up in a lawsuit with the developer against the county over water. They didn't have the water, so it was thrown out. And so basically, because of the utilities, it's before you all, and that's why it was annexed. So my question is on this zoning. I received this notice hearing letter that was December the 9th, was when the hearing was supposed to be. I received it on like October, late October sometime. On that second page, if you will look and see, on November the 18th, it appears to me that the zoning has already been decided, and on December the 9th, is when the Planning Commission meeting was supposed to take place over the zoning. So I don't understand how the zoning already took place before the meeting was even scheduled to take place. I mean, there was supposed to be a public hearing for us to go to and voice our opinions and say what we wanted, you know, what density we would like or how we'd like it zoned or whatever. But it appears to me, based on this, that it was already decided on November the 18th, and where did we have a chance to be heard? And if you'll look through the next several pages there, I mean, this is reference PC 10783, and then all of a sudden PC 10783 goes away. It's recommended it's be R1, but at the council meeting, when they annexed it, the petition letter that, or the notice of hearing that was by the city clerk for the annexation that was done at the end of November or December had no statement of how it was going to be zoned. And so when we see the ticker on the news on the 19th that the annexation took place and it's R1, our residents and everybody's like, what the heck just happened? We were waiting for our chance to be heard and voice our opinion on how, you know, we wanted to see this zone. Obviously, I live on 15 acres across the street from this property, and we have stuck with the county for years saying we wanted a 2-acre lot, and they've stuck with us on that.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here. We're over time on your comments, but it's not entirely clear to me that your concerns, you know, really relate to today's item. It's definitely like tangentially related, but Kenny, do you have a response to this?
Yes, I can clarify that, and Matt can chime in just in case I missed something. But, okay, what the city code provides the zoning code says that when the city annexes property, it will be brought in as AA, specifically says AA, or as otherwise designated by council. So in this particular case, yes, I believe the applicant initiated, or the planning department, I'm not sure whether it was the applicant, initiated a companion rezoning to make it R1. So, but ultimately in the annexation ordinance, it specified R1 instead of AA, R1. So that was passed by council. And so that's why it's been brought in as R1. So the protestant's issue is whether or not he should have gotten notice of the R1 zoning. So that's something the protestants could litigate. They could take that to court. Traditionally, historically, the city has always brought it in a zoning code designated category. And it's usually been either AA or R1, but the code used to specify which it was, AA or R1. It still says AA, but it also says it otherwise designated by council. So the issue is whether or not the zoning notices should have gone out to bring it in as R1, or whether or not it's legally valid the way it is.
But that all happened
Yes.
several months ago.
Correct.
Is not actually at issue here today, although you have every right to show up, but what we're doing today is correcting a legal description. And you're saying the remedy for his concerns, if he didn't feel that it was properly noticed, is at this point litigation, because we've already decided that zoning case. Today is not really a zoning
At this
case.
point, yes, it's really litigation.
Yeah, because today is not a zoning application. It's
Right.
not the zoning application that was arguably
Correct.
noticed correctly or not noticed correctly. That's not what we're talking
So
about.
his argument is that the zoning it was brought in is invalid because there was no notice sent out.
Right, but even if we wanted to do something about that today, we can't. That's not the item
Not today,
in front
no.
of us. Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Okay, so,
The other
and I
thing-
realize that. I
just-
mean, this was just our opportunity. We haven't been able to be heard because we haven't hit any meetings. We didn't know when any of this was happening because we're not receiving any notifications of anything. We publish something in a journal record. Who gets the journal record? Who looks at the journal record? If you would have put it in the Edmund Sun or
I assure you, we're not going to advertise in the Edmonds.
well, or whatever, or, but I mean, some other public.
I understand.
Okay, then I want
it's a
just
legal
one
thing.
other comment.
Yeah. Well, Mark had a response.
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Mr. Box, can you respond to these questions?
All right, can I just make one more quick statement and then I'll be done?
Okay.
Based on the fire protection deal, I think Councilwoman Hayman, whenever this went before the annexation deal, you questioned the fire department deal. It's like, well, the Oklahoma City, we need to build another fire station if we're going to take this on. Okay, if we put in 500 houses on this property, and we're expecting Deer Creek Fire that has 2 fire stations, I think one of them is manned 24 hours a day, and I don't think the other one, it's like a volunteer deal. So they cover 53 square miles of Deer Creek Rural Fire District. So you've got a station 3 miles away that you're concerned about covering, but you expect these 2 awesome rural fire departments to be able to service this area. And last year in July, when the wheat field to the east of this caught on fire, they had one pumper truck that was stuck in the ditch trying to get to this wheat field in the fire. They had one military truck that could get through this fire deal. Had this development been there, they would have probably lost a whole row of houses that would have backed up to that property because they couldn't even access it because they didn't have the equipment to do it. And I had a 4-wheeler with a sprayer on it. I went out and I covered this property in question, and helped the fire department put out about 25, 30 acres of that fire while the big fire truck was on the heavy wheat field trying to keep it to go from the housing addition to the south. So fire protection is a big deal. And like I say, if Oklahoma City can't cover that amount of density, how in the world is a little volunteer fire department going to do it?
And I can shed some light on that too. it will remain in the fire protection district, so you'll still have that, but, and Paul or Kelly has more information on this if you want it, but we're doing an agreement with the fire protection district for the Oklahoma City Fire Department to also provide fire protection in the area.
Right, as in backup.
Yes,
Yes. yeah.
correct.
Okay, all right, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Is there still a response needed? Okay.
David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Additionally, on the fire-related issue, this will be public water. I mean, one of the reasons we're seeking to, that we brought it in is because we have Oklahoma City Water, Oklahoma City Sewer on site. And so with public water, of course, we will be required to have fire hydrants. So the ability to fight fires will be enhanced. So as it relates to the confusion that exists based upon the rezoning application that was withdrawn and the ordinance that brought this in, the municipal code allows, as Mr. Jordan said, to bring this in as AA or as R1 if so designated by the council. In January of this year, the council did so designate the annexation to be brought in as R1. Once that happened, I withdrew the secondary rezoning application that was in the system because it was no longer necessary. The ordinances that deal with notice are different for annexation compared to rezoning. All notice provisions were adhered to as it relates to the annexation. But the mayor, as you rightfully said, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. The only thing that is happening today is a cleanup of the amendment, or excuse me, of the ordinance that was already passed. The site is in Oklahoma City. The site is zoned R1. Nothing about that can change. The only thing this does is clarify some language to reduce the size of the annexation, provide the necessary clarification on the fire protection so that Deer Creek Rural Fire will still receive the ad valorem taxes that they've been receiving, and finally, the jurisdictional language that was necessary. So all this is doing is fixing an error that occurred in January. No substantive decision is being made today.
Okay.
From what I can tell in looking at this, there was a Scribner's error as to the legal description. There was a correction to narrow the legal description, and there was also a clarification for fire protection services. So we're here today to fix what I would deem a Scribner's error and a fire protection services issue. The one thing I would say, and I think it's important for you to point out, Mr. Box, so people listening can be aware of, this is not dealing with the preliminary plat or the final plat, and I'd like you to walk through that process, which occurs next. And then secondly, I think, Matt, the legal division has clearly stated in a policy memo that if these people felt they did not get proper notice, that they'd have to proceed with a district court action. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right.
So in terms of development, this, what happened in January, this discussion today has nothing to do with the development of the land. Before anything can happen on the land, there would be multiple public hearings that would still have to occur. First and foremost, you'd have a preliminary plat. That application will be filed with Development Services, ultimately go to Planning Commission with notice being sent. Even that doesn't stop the discussion. Before any development can occur, after that, detailed studies have to occur from sewer, water, drainage studies. All of those get submitted to the city, and then a final plat is heard before the Planning Commission, once again requiring public notice to happen. And so before anything happens here, we're still way, way away, and multiple public hearings with notice being sent before we're able to actually see this development come to fruition.
Okay, we have one more resident who's signed up to speak. Ranit Tippins? And if that's not Ranit, I apologize, but that was what it looks like.
No, it's spelled like Janet, but it's pronounced Renette.
Renette?
That's my
Okay.
mother's thing, so we'll leave that with her. I am honored that you would allow me to speak today, and I very much appreciate your time. And as you stated, my topic is a little bit related and yet not related. I am the former superintendent of Deer Creek Public Schools, and I have spoken and been on several conferences. It's always been Zoom, so I've looked around this room a lot because I thought this is quite a new experience for me to be in the room. But thank you for your time and allowing me to speak today. What I want to talk to you about, and I'll try to do it very quickly, is a little bit of updating of data concerning the strain and impact of the rapid quantity of high density growth on Deer Creek School District, as well as the services of Deer Creek Fire. Deer Creek schools have good ad valorem growth, and we've had that conversation before, but what they have that most schools do not have is an intense strain of student growth. Deer Creek schools grew over 500 students this last year. This is up from the 350 to 400 students that we were a mere 3 years ago. 500 to 600 students mean we need a new elementary building every year. And the strain on our ad valorem dollars due to rapid growth in Deer Creek is in the top 1% of the state's public schools. Deer Creek schools can only handle bonds for larger buildings currently every 8 to 10 years, without increasing our already very high ad valorem taxes paid by our patrons. Deer Creek has the lowest business and industry revenue from ad valorem. The high majority of our ad valorem revenue comes from homes, each door bringing 2.3 students per home. Deer Creek has extremely poor quality and quantity of water, as documented by the county study. Deer Creek schools have one 2-lane road and bridge on MacArthur in and out anytime there is flooding. This already creates safety concerns, whether it's weather or it's athletic events. The rapid growth of families and traffic only exacerbate this problem, again documented by the county studies. Until 2-lane roads, bridges, and a poor quality and quantity of water are addressed throughout the district, the county plan documents and supports that Deer Creek's infrastructure, as well as the school's capacity, cannot support rapid growth of high-density housing and the resulting student enrollment. Deer Creek schools are bonded to capacity through 2030.
30 seconds.
The new elementary and smaller middle school, along with elementary wings, will likely open in 2024 at capacity, and it will be 2030 before another major bond issue can be issued. Once a bond issue is passed, it's 3 years before facilities open. As you saw earlier on some design, you got 1 year of design, 2 years of construction. High-density housing of 500 to 600 homes on 160 acres, which you're talking about today, will bring 1,200 plus students to Deer Creek Public Schools, resulting in a need for over 200,000 square feet. And if you see the Deer Creek Intermediate School or the 4-5 Center, that's exactly what they built. As you are aware, numerous high-density housing developments have already been approved and are in various stages of construction. A further note, a desk, chair, and books for each student costs a minimum of $1,000, and at 2.3 students per household, that's $2,300 per door. Deer Creek is in the bottom 3 schools in per pupil funding in the state revenue and federal resources. They are approximately $2,000 below the state average in per pupil funding annually. Deer Creek Schools was monitoring and planning to attend to present data and facts when this was to be voted on. Somehow, and I've learned how today, it was missed or unaware by school and patrons, and it was held on January 18th, where the council voted to pass this housing addition by 5-3, and it was noted at 510 doors on 160 acres. Had the school and patrons been aware of the meeting, they would have been here to present the infrastructure, financial, and capacity facts that have not changed from those that I've talked about in previous collaborations. For the city, this development is 510 water and sewer taps of revenue, but the net result for Deer Creek Schools is 1,173 students, creating an immediate need for 200,000 square feet, like the Deer Creek 4-5 Center, a capacity of 1,200 to 1,600 students. At a minimum cost today of $415 per square foot, including the soft costs, that's an $86 million building. In 2030, when Deer Creek can likely bond again, it will cost likely...
Are we close?
Yes, we are very close. I'm right to the end.
I'll let you go way over.
Okay, well, the cost will be approximately $540 a square foot and a $108 million building, with another $1.2 million for the price of putting a desk and chair under them. In summary, it's simple math. The infrastructure, including roads, bridges, water, as well as Deer Creek school capacity and funding, cannot support the rapid pace and quantity expansion of high-density housing. We respectfully ask for consideration of this matter in every development approval in Deer Creek School District. Superintendent Perez, Chief Operations Officer Jeff Johnson, Bond Advisor Jordan Smith, Deer Creek School Board members, and I and other patrons Would be happy to and would appreciate the opportunity to attend future meetings and speak further as to these concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so what does council wish to do with the ordinance?
The one thing I would like to say is, and I've worked with former Superintendent Tippins on timing of developments in Ward 8 to accommodate the school system. But in this case, after talking to legal counsel and what would happen in a district court action, there was city clerk notice given November 3rd, 2021. There was city clerk notice given December 9th, 2021. There was city clerk notice given December 16th, 2021. There was city clerk notice given December 21st, 2021. And there was public notice under the zoning given November 19th, 2021. And the zoning case was continued on December 9th, January 27th, and March 24th of 2022. So I think that notice went out. I think that there were opportunities to appear. I think there's still many opportunities to discuss the preliminary plat and the final plat, which has not come before the Planning Commission at this time. So at this time, I'll move for approval.
We still need
Of
discussion.
the ordinance.
I'd like to have discussion on this because we're, with that, and I'm going to have this discussion because the last Tuesday, my votes were dismissed out of technicality, so I want to make sure these discussions are met openly and candidly. First of all, Mr. Ewing, thank you for coming and speaking your truth to what you spoke about today. And in my opinion, that's where we have these issues pertaining to citizens, transparency, and government. We say we want less government, we want all these things. However, as I look at this, and even the dates that we just heard explained, and to any single person trying to figure out these things, that is confusing. We only know it because we live it. These residents don't understand all of these things because if it's continued over and over again, you think, okay, it's been put off. And then you find information that, oh, it's already occurred. Now what do we do? And you're here to speak your truth about what happened, what didn't take place, and who was not a part of this conversation. And for the school district who has openly spoken to the council person that represents that area, and it sounds to me as if they weren't included in some of that conversation pertaining to what this was supposed to be. And so as we hear, after Mr. Ewing spoke, we gave all of these definitions about, oh, this is supposed to be that, this was supposed to be how this was supposed to be sent out as a notice. We know that is not the case as far as the understanding of just the average person of how this works. And it's very disappointing. Again, we continue to go through these things, and it depends on where you live and who you are, how some of these things get to go and get passed through. And that's very unfortunate, especially for Deer Creek, the way this was passed through, for the council member to do that, because I know that's how this got done. So with that, I will say in the ways that we're looking at this, that I know it's probably going to go forward in litigation, and understanding that, I know that other residents, and we're going to have more of these that come in front of us that will probably go into litigation as well, which we should be very careful of, especially when it comes to these types of things, and going around people in our residents in order to get things passed for others. That's not why we were elected to do that. So I wanted to make sure that is on public record and said as we go through this process.
One more thing, one other idea. Can you come up for just a second to the podium? I know you asked that this be adopted with an emergency. Would you be willing to waive the emergency so we could have another public hearing on this with the ordinance to be introduced and approved today?
Sure, yeah, we could have it introduced today and set for public hearing in 2 weeks. Again,
yeah,
it's the only thing we're doing is correcting an error. There's not a substantive decision being made
sure.
today or in 2 weeks.
I'm going to move to amend Ordinance U to delete the public hearing first of all, or excuse me, the emergency first of all.
Well, I don't know that he, walk us through it, Kenny. He wants to turn this into a, would it be a 3-meeting cycle?
Yes, 2.
2-meeting
You
cycle?
would introduce today would be final hearing and adoption at the next meeting, I think.
That's what I'm trying to do.
So what does he need to do?
It's already on for introduction today. It's been deferred.
Yeah.
So does he just need to move introduction and then state maybe verbally that there'll be a
There'll be
final consideration at the next meeting?
Yes.
So we just don't have a vote on the emergency, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
You can't introduce and pass an ordinance when you
Yeah.
introduce it unless you have the emergency.
Okay.
I'll move introduction of the ordinance U, please.
Okay.
It's only 2 hearings because this is not a codified ordinance.
Got it. Okay, so we've got a motion to introduce the ordinance, but I think we still have some more discussion. I
Well-
see Councilman Cooper.
And the reason, and I really appreciate everyone's patience, because I can sense some, we'll call it some slight tension in terms of the fact that we are talking at length and that the residents have spoken at length on this. But looking at this timeline, my strong indication is that the reason why we heard at length from the residents today is because they missed opportunities earlier in this timeline to speak. So I hear what you're saying, Councilman, about these later moments here, but when you look at the timeline, I really wish my Ward 2 people could see what I'm looking at, but there's a moment here on November 12th where property owners within 300 feet of this proposal received a notice about a hearing taking place on December 9th. Like they received a notice saying December 9th is your chance to make your voice heard as you heard them make their perspectives heard today in front of council. But then on November 18th, 6 days later, the Planning Commission made a recommendation to City Council for annexation. And then on the 9th, when there was supposed to be that hearing, it just got deferred all the way to January 27th. That's very confusing. That is very confusing. I'm not accusing anyone of like.
I'm not following your timeline. I'm seeing on December 9th, 2021, there was published notice. I'm seeing on December 16th, 2021, there was published notice.
Back up, Mark. Back up. Thank you. When you go to November 12th, that moment, I think, is where the confusion began. I don't want to speak for somebody else. And you spoke. That's what I'm saying, Mark. That's the councilman. That's the moment of confusion. Do you understand what I'm saying?
That's why there's notice that was sent on November 3rd, 2021 before that. And so the point is, we are going to have, if this passes, a public hearing where all of this can be discussed and be gone through in a logical timeline. But I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instances of notice going out on the annexation and zoning timeline. And if I'm wrong, I'll go research it. We'll talk about it more. But I see notice going out as early as November 3rd, and Matt and Kenny might correct me, but it's my understanding that when those notices go out, they go to the school board, and if the school board has an objection, they have the right to come and appear.
I just want to reiterate that whether this is a valid argument or not, it has nothing to do with the item on the agenda today. And there's a point where, I mean, like, I almost have a duty as presiding officer to move us on because we're arguably debating something that's not on today's agenda.
I hear what you're saying, Mayor. It is more that I, as a council person, need to better understand, maybe not in this particular horseshoe moment, but I need to better understand how this timeline from the 3rd through the 9th happened. This is very confusing.
And that's why we're going to have a public hearing if this passes today.
And then I need to figure out how to make sure going forward, and I've already mentioned this to council staff, but I need to figure out how it's possible for this body to receive backstory when things go to a county commission, planning commission, when they go there and then appear before this body. Like, until this, Mayor, I didn't quite understand that there could be a moment where something did not find itself approved at a county-wide planning commission, but still make its way to the city. or vice versa. Like I didn't, you know, maybe it was something that went to that level of government and then came here. Until this item, until Mr. Ewing reached out to us, I did not understand that particular process because I'm more involved at the city level. So I just need going forward that. And you're right, this has taken a while, but I think all of this would have been avoided previously. So I have very specific ask. I would like for two things to happen. One, for this body to become better informed through, I guess, our planning department when something has appeared previously at the county planning commission so that we have that backstory. I just think that's important. I don't know why we would not want that. So that's my ask. My other ask is to better understand what happened here on the November 18th Planning Commission. But those are. I just need that because this gentleman reached out specifically to my office and has asked questions that I don't have the answers for.
And to be clear, as we go through this process today, this is just a formality because it's already been pre-approved. We're just going through a motion today. And to be heard for the people, it doesn't make a difference because we've already passed it. So now we want to hear them at the end instead of actually making intentions to hear them through this whole process from the beginning. And as we look at November 3rd, what I'm reading, it says that was the Journal of Record notice published for annexation to be heard for the Planning Commission meeting. So that was the notice for public, and as we just heard, who's reading? I mean, if you are not a subscriber, are you really paying attention to what is happening in that particular publication? So those are going to be issues that we're going to always carry, especially with our notices as they are published in these types of publications. And again, we're looking at the area of Deer Creek, and we had over 50 square miles that they operate and maneuver through, and to the point of what we just heard, that the county said no. They said no for a reason. They said no for a reason. And here we are passing it through to say, oh yeah, we'll take it. We'll do whatever you want us to do because we have a council member that'll push it forward. So therefore, we'll go ahead and we can move the vote through and have the public hearing for the next meeting.
Very briefly, and I think you need to explain what happened with the county.
Yeah, so briefly, the reason that the county declined it was because of a water issue with Deer Creek Rural Water. Them saying no resulted in federal litigation that ultimately the Garretts were successful in. Their ability to serve this with Oklahoma City water is why we are now bringing it to Oklahoma City. So the county said no because there was no water source. That resulted in federal litigation that the Garretts were successful in. Now we're able to be served by Oklahoma City water. That's why we went from county to city.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for the item. No, we're done here. No, you've already spoken, and we have got to move on from this issue. This has nothing to do with I mean, it's arguably out of order for us to even be talking about all this because the question on the table is a legal description of the extension and a clarification on fire protection services. We have to keep the debate to that. If we want to continue this conversation, people can do it in conference rooms in this building, and I'm sure there will be many who want to participate in that. But right now, is there any further discussion on the item at hand, the motion to move this ordinance today with a final consideration at the meeting in 2 weeks, correct, Mark? That's the motion? Okay.
That's it.
Any other discussion on this item?
I just want to be clear.
Yes.
What we're voting on is just to approve the words that we're amending and that we'll have a public hearing in 2 weeks.
Well, okay, it's not really a public, I mean, of course, people can speak at the item in 2 weeks, but it's not a 3-meeting cycle like.
No, this is a 2-meeting cycle.
Yeah, so
but
there's
we
not
can
a
talk
public
about
hearing per se. There's a final consideration at which the public can be heard.
Just want to make.
That's a term of art that we have for the 3-meeting cycle where the second meeting is just a public hearing. There won't be that meeting in this case because, as Kenny said, it's not a codified ordinance. Okay. All right, we have a motion on the table. We want to bring it up virtually. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes to introduce the ordinance found at 11U. Passes 6-3. There will be potential final consideration at the meeting in 2 weeks and an opportunity for the public to be heard on the ordinance. Okay, item V is a public hearing regarding the dilapidated structures here listed. We have items B1A through D. I think maybe were some previously deferred. Forgive me, I missed you when you said that. Not on V. We have an item here, Council Woman Nice, that's been deferred multiple times.
I would like to defer it again, please.
Okay.
That would be item C.
Okay.
Thank
So that'd
you.
be for 2 weeks or for beyond that?
Let's go ahead and go for a month. I need to ensure that Dr. Phillips and his family have a plan in action.
Okay, Amy's pulling up what date that would be. We like to have that. Of October? You mean September? Okay, September 27th is the motion to defer item V1C. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. All right, we're back on the remaining items, and no one has signed up to speak, correct? So we could move to the resolution at V2, declaring that the structures are dilapidated except for that one previously deferred. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. 11W1 is a public hearing regarding the unsecured structures here listed, except for those previously struck. Has anyone signed up to speak, Amy?
No, they haven't.
They have not, so we'll close the public hearing and advance to the resolution found at W2, declaring that the structures are unsecured. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. 11X1 is the public hearing regarding the abandoned buildings here listed, except for those previously struck. Amy, has anyone signed up to speak?
No, they haven't.
They have not, so we will close the public hearing and advance to the resolution found at X2, declaring that the buildings are abandoned. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. All right, 11Y is a resolution accepting the City of Oklahoma City Updated Hazard Mitigation Plan 2022 and authorizing the city manager to submit the updated plan to the Oklahoma Department of Emergency Management and FEMA. Anything to say about this, Craig?
This process is, we work through this process every 5 years. It's led by the Department of Emergency, or the Emergency Management Program within the police department, but it's multiple departments within the city that participate. Just a few amendments have been made or adjustments have been made in the plan that deal with firefighting, and it's one of them is to acknowledge that we now use, we've done the training on, have the equipment to use what they refer to as a Bambi bucket, but it's a bucket can be used for wildland fires with the helicopter, and so it acknowledges that, and then a change in the way that they're no longer working towards construction of dry hydrants, which is something that's done in areas where we don't have hydrants and have water out to those areas. We use tankers and have tanker equipment to do that. So there's just a few adjustments in the firefighting portion of this as far as our mitigation, but other than that, this is similar to what we have approved previously.
Okay. Well, there's no questions or discussion. We could take a motion to accept the resolution, or I'm sorry, pass the resolution accepting the plan. We have a motion and a second. Cast your votes. Passes unanimously. Okay, that brings us to item 12, comments from council, Ward 1.
Go Pokes, Thursday night against Central Michigan.
Guys, we've had enough tension here today. We really don't need to go down the road of bedlam as well. Is that
That's
all?
it, I'm good.
Ward 2.
No, thank you.
Ward 3. Ward 4. Okay. Ward 6.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd like to add to the previous discussion is I think this situation has brought up, again, the need for us to reconsider how we annex property and our process to annex new property into the city limits. Because I think especially that we apparently don't really seem to have any transparent or open communication with the county, at least that's informed to us at our level, is an issue. I think that there's an issue that this didn't go through another ad hoc annexation committee, even though the previous one had happened years in the past and things have changed. I think that those are both issues that speak to, again, we talk all the time about how our city is so large and how it's really hard to deliver services adequately to the city as is. And when we're talking about extending water infrastructure, extending fire coverage, that just means 20 years down the road, when I'm only 50 years old, we're going to have to be adding bond propositions to add new fire departments when we already have a lot of needs that are deferred and deferred and deferred for decades. So those are just, I have concerns about how this process works and how it seems to leave out council members that are in the core of the city, because annexation of land into the city affects us as well. And I think it doesn't make sense the way we do this process, and especially when there's not, it's a hard and complicated process to understand. So I think this situation just brings up the need for us to really look at that. And I know we have a meeting later today, city manager, but I'd really be interested in seeing what we can do, working with other council members to address how we do this process and making sure that it's really transparent and as easy as any legal process can be to understand.
Ward 7?
Thank you. And to the point of that, as we were talking through plans of things that we're working towards and millions of dollars, I'm still trying to get 4 streets repaved. So those are the things that I think about as we go through these types of processes as well, of bringing in other new areas when we already have the sprawl, especially for the 130 square miles that I serve personally, that have various needs when it comes to street pavement, gravel, whatever the case may be, and also limited resources on fire there. We already still have limited resources where we have annexed long ago that still have ways that they can't have access to certain things, limitations and barriers, because our city resources are so stretched. And again, in that urban core, I can't get 4 streets repaved. So those are definitely concerns for me. But I do want to commend River Sport again for the weekend. What an amazing weekend. Got to hang out there Friday, and then I went back Saturday, and it was so hot, but people were standing outside to watch those floats and kayaks, whatever they were, just float down the river. Half of them falling apart after they took off. So that was fun. And I do understand that they are packaging this to be broadcast in Europe as far as the ICF, the paddle sports event. So very excited and pleased with what I personally saw with my own eyes, and just to see the diversity of people in all of those countries represented was very, very amazing and beautiful to see. And the fact that I kind of chatted with Executive Director Mike Knopp and asked, what was Red Bull saying, and they said they were very pleased, and I have a belief that we will probably see this event come back to Oklahoma City again. So very excited about that. Also, wanted to thank the Chamber for the trip that we had to experience and understand a lot of the development that is happening in Milwaukee, and also for their mayor to be a part of the conversation and speak to us. And he is the first African-American mayor elected to Milwaukee, the city of Milwaukee. So just to see that type of history in this space, and also experience the arena. And they took us places that, I hate to say this, that we haven't even been in our own arena, as far as like back, the locker room for the players. So we got to see where Giannis Antetokounmpo actually plays, and I said that right this time, yes, and all of the others, and Serge Ibaka, who also played for our team here. So looking forward to those conversations and community benefit agreements that could possibly come with these conversations of how we look forward. Also wanted to commend the Clara Looper Legacy Committee for their Freedom Fiesta last weekend, that they had a full weekend and culminated on Sunday with Pastor Carter, who is a home resident of Oklahoma but resides now in Dallas, Texas, speaking a word of the theme, "The Struggle Continues." So definitely excited about what we heard today to continue the legacy of Clara Looper, and also excited that her family and the board was here to witness this momentous occasion on today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. If you have not had the time yet to read Russell Evans' 17-page report on the prospects of recession coming forward, I would encourage you to read that. He does a soft landing scenario and he does a hard landing scenario, but he says two really important things. We do not know the timing and we do not know the extent of economic hardship that must be imposed to remove this upcoming inflation. History suggests that the Federal Reserve, having moved late to address inflation, will err on the side of over-adjusting policy. He goes on to say that, our best case scenario is a soft landing policy. But in the end, he concludes, unfortunately, sales tax collections will likely be a leading rather than lagging indicator on our upcoming economic situations. I'm very disappointed that Russell was unable to be here today. I think it's really important that we have him come as quickly as possible. I think we need to get prepared to button down the hatches because I think we're coming up on a difficult time financially for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. We have no citizens who have signed up to speak, so we are adjourned.